Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I welcome the opportunity to make comment on the Minister's statements, and I hope that it will please the Chair that I make comments on the Minister's statements, unlike a situation that happened with a colleague of mine earlier in the week. I think the Minister has made some very, very good points, and it is a good thing to widen the criteria by which parents can gain parental leave, because it's parents that we're talking about. And I think as long as we continue to genderise it, that we have a danger, Minister, of making this about only women staying at home. And while certainly we still...
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallett.
Chairman, I'm very reluctant to do it to one of the people on my side of the House. Sir, I've now looked very carefully at the provisions of Part 1 in this bill, and the matters to which the member is referring are not part of Part 1. Part 1 is a relatively narrow debate about what's... And it might be okay to respond to a minister who made some comments, but Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, normally it's a narrow debate around what's in it, not about what's in a subsequent bill. And I think what everyone's been talking about in the last two speeches is a subsequent bill.
I hear what you're saying. And it's about the duration, if we looked at Part 1, about the duration of what paid parental leave's about. And there have been some flexibility. I've allowed the Minister some licence there. And I just asked the member to be mindful of this in future speakers about what is actually in Part 1. Tracy Martin.
Speaking to the point of order, sir?
No. If you want to speak, it's your call. Tracy Martin.
Well, it's an interest. Sorry, I'm now going to have to seek your guidance, sir. Point of order. I'm seeking your guidance. I'm not trying to argue with you, or I'm actually trying to understand what has just happened here. For the second time this week, a minister has stood up and brought a series of things into a debate. And I'm responding to those things, and I'm not quite sure now where I'm at with regard to how I respond.
That's fair comment. You are responding on a rebuttal basis. You are responding on a rebuttal basis to comments that were made. And on a previous point of order that came up by Sue Moroney, I said that the Minister was putting in context about where the bill was and how this related to this. So there was some licence there. And I accept that the member can make rebuttal points about what the Minister has said. But then I asked the member to come back and focus on the length of time, the duration, which Part 1 is about for paid parental leave. Tracy Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, with regard to, just to clarify with regard to the Minister's comments, there are some very good things with regard to what the Minister made comment about, and that we're pleased to see the widening of the criteria, because we recognise, just as the Minister mentioned, that the workforce has changed. It's probably the first time, actually, that we have had acknowledgement from a minister of this government that there is a casualisation and an underemployment of New Zealanders in this country. And so the need for them to move from one temporary work to another work is quite marked, and so this needed to happen. But I will hopefully address that at some stage in the future. With regard to the extension of the period of time inside Part 1 of the bill, New Zealand First can only reiterate its great disappointment at the fact that the government has chosen to do the least that it could do, the very least that it could do for the newborn babies, and that I didn't come up with the word newborn. I'm not here trying to get anybody's sympathy or create a weeping workforce out there. The title of the bill is Financial Support for Newborn Children. So it's very disappointing from New Zealand First perspective, and we say it again and again and again, that this is the very least that the government felt it could do. And other members of the government have mentioned that this is a time frame, and they've joked about different time frames that have been put forward by the Green Party and so on and so forth. This is almost the least that any government is doing that prides itself on being a country that strives to be its best. If we look at some of the Nordic nations, which I was referring to previously, a year a year has been acknowledged as the timeline in which true bonding takes place. And I think Dr. Gluckman himself has actually pointed this out on many occasions, that the benefits to New Zealand as a nation to truly support young babies and young children in the bonding with a parent, and it doesn't matter which parent, at the bonding with a parent is vitally important for the nation and its long-term savings inside health spending and other spending. So with regard to part one, sir, while we appreciate the Minister's comments and that certainly they have addressed other anomalies that needed to be addressed, particularly because of the casualisation of the workforce under a national government, we are disappointed that they have gone to the minimum they could do to attempt to keep a voting public behind them at the next election.
I'm going to call Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very enthusiastic I am to take a call too. And my colleague Carol Beaumont and others will no doubt be taking